Today what I'd like to do is talk to you a little bit about ergonomics first and why do we care. There's a lot of injuries experienced by the installers. The concern was, where are the injuries happening? You all know because of the protective equipment worn by on the knees, that knees are a big concern for floor layers, but it goes far beyond that. One of the other areas of concern is the low back. And interestingly, another area of concern is the neck. And there's a lot of neck injuries that occur, and they actually do, there is a connection between the neck and the hands, and that injury will transfer down to your hands. So there's a concern for all of these regions of the body. Injuries are caused by not only the nature of the work and the fact that the work is being performed at the floor, but it's also the materials and the tools that are being used, and that's primarily what we want to talk about today. So the field of ergonomics is looking at how we can make the work, improve the work, recognizing what the hazards are in the work. And there are 5 primary risks that we're concerned with. The first one is repetition, performing the same activity repeatedly. The second one is forceful exertions. The third one is awkward positions. You all know that you're on your knees and you have poor positioning in the back. The fourth one is vibration, and the last one's contact stress. So what we're going to do is have Tommy and Greg demonstrate 3 types of installation methods, and I'm going to be talking to you about those 5 risks related to each one of these installations. Tommy over here, of course, is doing the nail down version. Greg will be working with the adhesive, and then in a few minutes we'll have one of them jump over to the Cliq Floor. So if you guys want to go ahead and start to work, we're going to talk a little bit about the tools that are used. I want to talk about Tommy's work first. You're all familiar with the nail down version. You have to rack, and then once you rack, have all your pieces prepped. Tommy actually used this tool right here to cut the wood into the appropriate lengths. He did that from his, this is a nice device because it's lightweight. It has an extended handle, and it was easily transported to the area. However, by doing that, he actually did the cutting from the floor position, so he stayed down on the floor. Kneeling for the racking is a problem, but it is relieved when he stands up to do the nailing. A second issue we have with the nail down, of course, is the amount of force that is used when you apply the nailer. In the old days, for those of you who have been around long enough, you know that the manual nailer required quite a bit of force to seat the nails. The new pneumatics are wonderful. And the rubber mallet actually also decreases the amount of impact, which causes vibration to go up the hand to the arm. So this is very nice. Now Tommy, of course, is alternating between standing and kneeling to do some of his nailing. Some workers, the way they apply this is they will stay in a bent forward, bent back position continuously to go across to nail a whole row. And we really want workers to alternate between a bent forward and an upright posture as much as possible. So alternating tasks is a good way of switching that. So he's going back and forth between the kneeling and the stand-up, the kneeling to rack and the stand-up to nail. And then here we have Greg. So one of the things for the adhesive is the trowel. And the second part is laying the laminate. Greg right now is cutting the board. He's doing this from a seated position, but the extended handle on this would also allow it to be done from a standing position. The advantage to the device is it's lightweight, it's easily transferred to the area, it does not need electricity available. The downside is he continues to remain on his knees throughout. Greg, unlike Tommy, is wearing knee pads, and knee pads are critical to protecting the knees. Most of the floor layers, and you probably saw it a little bit with Tommy, is they tend to bend their toes under, they curl their toes, and that contributes to plantar fasciitis. That's one of the contributors. So we really want the floor layers to keep their toes straight as much as possible, and this type of knee pad will allow that to happen. And now Tommy has a technique where he actually keeps, I think he tucks his feet under. Yeah, so he is not at risk for the plantar fasciitis in his type of kneeling method. Going back to these knee pads though, they do tend to give you that foot support so you have less chance of curling your toes, as you can see with Greg here. So he is doing continuous kneeling here. The other risk we have, we don't alternate positions like Tommy did with the nailing, and so we're constantly down on the floor. But you also have the added risk of the force for the hand troweling. There's a lot of different trowels available. The most common is the one that we see here with the flat and the curved handle. In other parts of the country, you'll actually see a straight trowel or a curved or an angled handled trowel, and we have found that those can be very useful. So this is very nice. He does not need to use a hammer for this, so that's one of the advantages to the glue down. He can actually just press it into place. One of our risk factors at the beginning that I mentioned, the 5th risk factor, is contact stress. Contact stress is when a part of the body is being pressed on a hard surface, such as the knees on the floor, which is why the knee pads is desirable. But another common stressor is using the hand as a hammer, which you would not want to do. These materials, from the way I've observed so far, they have not had to use a lot of force when they use their hand as a hammer. So now Greg is troweling. One of the concerns we have for the trowel is if it's a very viscous material, there's more force on it. I'm not talking about excessive force, and this is a short-term task, so it's not as bad as you would find for troweling other types of adhesive for other types of material. However, there is a concern when you're using the body part at the end range of motion. Greg is keeping more of a neutral wrist alignment. He's not working in the wrist in the forward bent or the extended position as much, so that's desirable. Because he's using both sides of the trowel though, the right and the left, it may not be as desirable to use the angled handle on the trowel. So those are things you have to try. The third material here is the Cliq Floor, which has the advantage of not requiring nails or glue. So the installation has some lower risk. One of the other disadvantages for this flooring over here, again, is that the worker tends to stay down on their knees continuously. This particular type of material requires the pieces to be fit together a certain way, and Tommy's doing a really good job of moving those around, and the gloves provide some assistance on that. He does not have the knee pads on, so he has contact stress coming through his knees. He does tend to sit back on his heels and keep his feet flat. So another device that some of the professionals will wear are actually catcher's inserts behind their knees. And what that does, Tommy is a very flexible guy, and that's a commendable thing for a person who's done this, is as experienced as Tommy is. However, sitting with your knee as bent as Tommy is actually is problematic and places the workers at risk of knee injuries. We're all familiar with the fact that floor layers often have knee replacements, and at a fairly young age. And we all know that one of the things you cannot do once you've had your knee replaced is kneel. So that's a career-ending procedure for all floor layers. This type of flooring, because it can all be done from a kneeling position, would be a problem. Some floor layers have the opportunity to perform a variety of installations over the course of their career, or even within a short period of time in their job. If their company happens to rotate between these 3 types of flooring, you can see that they would actually have alternating wrists. Some of them would allow a stand-up, there would be some with some wrist stressors, and there would be some with some continuous kneeling. But alternating between the 3 would give that installer a variation in some of those exposures. But installers that tend to do one type of material over and over again would be placing themselves at risk. Ideally, you would diversify in your skill set. Another aspect of all 3 of these jobs that would give you an opportunity to get off your knees would be to place the tape, instead of using the cutter device like this, is to use a saw. Is to use a table saw and to have it in an upright position on a waist height surface. However, most of the guys say that's inefficient, that makes me slower.
Have a helper.
Or have a helper, as Tommy is saying. So oftentimes when I'm working with the guys out in the field, they'll say, I don't want to do anything where I have to get off my knees and I have to stand up because that makes me slower and I'm less productive. But the question is not how productive are you within that 1 hour of time in the early part of the day. The question is how much production can you have over the course of the entire day? Or more importantly, how productive can you be after you've done this type of work for months or years? And of course, the more damage you have to your body, the slower you're going to be. Truly, the more experienced you are, the more efficient you are. But some of what's driving that is the fact that you hurt and you're going to find other ways to do things. You know, if we can get them, if the older guys or the more experienced guys can educate them on using equipment, if contractors can help support the process. And I've seen that with several of the contractors, they'll help the newer apprentices with their tools, helping them get better tools. The union here, of course, has done a great job of underwriting some of that for these newer guys. We need to train them early. We need to help protect them. Something that was brought to light, I think, earlier in the conference here is the fact that there are fewer guys coming into the trade. And so if we're having fewer and fewer workers coming in and being available for this work, we need to protect the health of those who we already have and those who are skilled. So as much as possible, that's what my research is about, is looking at how can we educate, how can we find tools, how can we get manufacturers to develop tools and materials, how can we educate contractors to help support this, and as a system or an industry, how can we actually improve the lives of the workers that actually we all depend on, or none of us would be here. Well, thank you very much.